we will start off today with looking at our agenda and kind of go down through there, and maybe that will help keep us on track, especially me. To have this, I do have it on the whiteboard for us. I know it's a little bit hard to see, but we can refer to that also. So we're going to start off kind of like thinking back about small groups. So I'd like for someone to read our long-term goal, which would be the first thing that's stated on the agenda. Ms. Jo, would you read that?
Sure. Implement a purposeful, intentional small group in Tier 1 instruction.
Okay, so that's what we're thinking about right now, is what the small groups would look like as we start implementing those in our Tier 1 Tennessee foundational lessons. Hannah, would you read our need or kind of our focus, what we're...
The starting.
Right, okay.
How can I plan small group instruction explicitly, intentionally, and with good purpose?
Okay, now that was a need, and we're going to go back. Let me switch chairs. And we did a survey. So we're going to look just a minute at the survey. And this was a district survey. Johnson's branch also took the survey. So we said that our top 3 needs was culture and management, which we talked about briefly. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. We discussed what does our classroom look like, our environment, and when we are pulling those small groups. And then planning. So we're going to hit a little bit with planning today. We're going to be talking about small group routines. I think we have touched on that just a little bit. So I have the big yellow chart on the beside there that we can go back to, and then small groups. So we're going to kind of focus more on the planning part of the small group routines today, or our needs. All right, so I want us to go back. We have a reflection, and Rachel, I'll let you read what I want you to reflect on for a few minutes.
From last week or today?
Just right on our agenda, the reflection.
Oh, okay. Reflect on any implementation of routines and procedures you worked on in your classroom in the last week to ready your students for Tier 1 small group instruction time.
So just very quickly, with about 3 minutes, just reflect back if you've been working on anything, like with your partner reads, or how you are thinking about that culture and that environment, anything you tried, or anything that you're going to be able to share. And we will do that the next time. So I'll just let you write your reflections. We'll take about 3 minutes to do that. Okay, looks like everyone has maybe done a really good reflection on one of the needs, and we'll continue discussing and talking about how that's going in our classroom and what our needs continue to be for that. Let's go on down to our part B. We're going to think about our grade level trends and our class trends and our individual student trends from our beginning of the year data. If you have brought that with you, it would look like, this is the sheet that I gave you, I think, here. Or you may have written on your online spreadsheets. You go ahead and run that off, right? So what we were doing is thinking about, as a whole grade level, what did we see? As a class, what did we see? And then as, of course, our individual students that would need some intervention for sure. So let's look, thinking about this, I did as I was looking over your data, I took Hannah's data and I ran off a copy of what my rough thinking was on her data. So you can see it's nothing fancy, okay? I just went through and wrote my students' names down. I just highlighted whole class if I saw anything that I thought she could work on for whole class. And then I also broke it down into the two parts of the two tests that I thought were really important on the sounds, which was a pseudo word and the code knowledge. Now, what does this not tell you? Miss Jo, I should have your copy of that too. You're looking at that
yes.
instead of this one. Okay, so what does this not tell you though? It does tell you which students.
Okay.
What does it not tell you?
You're talking about the bottom part?
Yes,
I mean, it doesn't say what sounds it is.
exactly. So this is who the students are, right? That I know that need some intervention, some help, but it doesn't tell you exactly what it is that they need. So that would be where you would dig deep into your data and really look at what it is that they are those specific deficits that they would have. I noticed that when I was noticing and wondering about her data also, I'm thinking about 6 students, when she was saying the word one, they chose the word who. So also when you're thinking about this, think about why did they choose those particular answers, and if there was a pattern to that as you're going through your data. Also, we want to think about where are these taught? Were they previous kindergarten skills? So there is a sheet, and I will give that to you, that shows what skills were previously taught. Do you have that?
No, I don't know.
Okay, great. So I do have that right there. I did not give it to you thinking that you might have. All right, so this is, I think, what they have already done in kindergarten, and that should help you when you're looking through to see when was this taught. Now, if it was taught in a later unit, did they get to that unit? Did they have a lot of time to spend on it? So that might come into play also. So hopefully that will help. And there's some on the back also. So let's look a minute now at our data as we're looking at what we have brought. And I want you to work on this sheet, specifically where it says small group target skill, because we're going to be working on planning a small group around one of these, okay? I need you to discuss for me, for my thinking, also any class trends before we go to our individual small group.
Class or grade level?
Class, and then I'll let you discuss grade level also. So Joe, we'll just start with you for class, or let's do grade level. Did you want to get together on
Yes.
that? Okay, good. All right, grade level trends.
Okay.
And this isn't on this, but I'm going to take some notes, okay? So grade level trends.
Okay, well, we noticed that a big issue, of course, were their blends.
Okay.
Their CH, their SH, their TH. Another area that we noticed was adding to do plural. In other words, when they gave us wicks, a lot of the kids got the CK, the wick, but they didn't get the S on the end.
Okay.
So, and we kind of noticed that across the grade level, that was a definite issue. And then, y'all help me out if I'm missing something.
I-E sound,
Yes.
B and D.
Yes.
Okay, so you saw that all across,
Yes.
i.e.,
Definitely B and D.
And B and D's a huge one.
B and D.
Yes, they're
Exactly.
getting them mixed up.
Okay, so knowing our grade level trends, how could that help us for us to think about as a whole what our whole grade level is, maybe some skills that we need to work on? So what could we,
Well, we had said that obviously they struggled with these because it was at the end of kindergarten unit.
right?
Most of them, anyways, not B and D, but SH, TH, all that kind of stuff. So we thought before we decide on what we're gonna do in our small groups, we've gone through and highlighted the words that most of them in our classes have all missed. So we're gonna type it out the same way they had it in the beginning and reassess it. And then that will help us to decide what our small group needs to be working on as far as SH, CH, all that stuff.
Great. I like your summary of what you're going to do. Also, I think that letting kindergarten know that when we're doing first grade, is still having some thoughts with this, so that might help kindergarten say we might need to practice a little bit more on these particular deficits. Explain to me just a minute about the blending part, because that's really a big Unit 2 focus is blending. So are you saying that like
They know the sounds, but they just can't put it together. Like if the word was clap, they'll say cap.
Okay.
We're doing a lot of those Apple pages, I call them. And that, I think that's helping some, because you're having like delete off the first sound of a blend, and they have to give you the other part of the word, like clap, they have to say, okay, say clap, but cut off the k, and they have to say lap. That's helping with that some, but if some of them still cannot hear that second sound in the blend.
Okay.
They can't hear that.
And I know those Apple pages are helping, because I would say today was my first day that I really had a greater amount of my kiddos that were able to cut off that first sound of the blend. It's been tough for them
Oh, yeah.
to do that.
I mean,
It's
I had
real
to
tough.
stop and put the word on the board.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what sound are we cutting off? And I'll mark it out. And then, then they saw it. And then we would go back and do another word. And
So you can tell a difference, the sound
Yeah.
first pages are making.
yes, yes.
Oh, they definitely
Good.
are.
So you all are, kind of focusing on those sounds first.
That's what we were told this
Good.
summer. She
Yes.
said, do not
Yes.
leave those pages out. She
Right.
said, if you just have to do a few of them, not all of them. And that's what I've been concentrating
Right,
on.
that's good.
Good.
Mhm.
I'm glad.
And they love them.
Helping know.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Good. Good deal. All right, so we've talked about our whole grade level trends, and that possibly during our Tier 1 instruction, we can find time, or during the sounds first, to work and maybe get some of these in that we see as a whole class. So each one of you could tell me just a little bit about your class trends. So Rachel, I'll just start with you first. Class trends you see.
Well, the blending. My class trend she was talking about the Wix word. Most of mine picked wax because of the sounded like an X at the end.
Okay.
I think that's why they chose that, because I had how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6th to choose that. And still the SHCH test. And I'm anxious to see when we reassess them if the SHCH and TH is better.
Right.
Because we
Yeah.
have really
Yeah.
hammered
When
that.
do you do that?
When did we do that?
When will the next assessment come?
Our flex day, I gotta add 2 days because I forgot we missed 2 days.
Oh,
It'll
okay.
start next Friday.
Next Friday?
So,
Okay.
next Friday we're doing, we will
Okay, well, hopefully you'll
assess that day to
see
see.
some improvement, yeah.
Mhm.
That was a question I had for you. Are you planning on reassessing these?
Yeah, that's what she said, that we were gonna give them the same exact thing,
Good,
Right,
just to see.
right.
good. Okay,
Okay.
great. So I will make a note of that too, and we'll get back with what you see when you do the reassessment. All right, so let's, Hannah, we'll let you tell me about your grade level trends.
Most of mine are the same ones that everybody had. I did have a lot miss the one, like you said, and I think it's because, well, most of them get 2. I think they were looking at the W because it's a tricky word. And says or said, but that, other than that, all my other ones were like the CHTH.
Okay. If we agree on some of our thinking as
Yeah.
far as, okay, all right. Okay, Joe, what did you,
Okay, well, I had a couple of 2 or 3 areas here.
okay,
One of them was the R, okay? Because when we had crabs, a lot of my kids left off that R and chose cabs. So, you know, R is definitely one of those, and when you're putting it in that blend, it's, you know, it's just tough for them to push that together. So that was one. The other one, which I thought was kind of interesting, when we had chill, I had just all kinds of popcorn responses to that one. I had chin, I had Jill, I had spill, and so it's kind of, you know, I'm trying to figure out, okay, is it the L? Is it, you know, just what are they hearing that kind of gave them a little trouble on that one. And then the other one that I really had some, you know, other than the blends, of course, was spit. And so it seemed like they got the SP blend, but then they had trouble with the end of it. So I got a lot of spill on that one. So kind of relating that one to the chill, I gotta figure out what's going on there. Yeah.
okay, so worth your time to definitely to think about that. So you all done a great job.
And I want to remind you too, that the ARG, you can use some of those pages in there.
Oh, we have been.
We have been.
Targeted supports, we have talked about
Or
what it is,
quick
where it
reassessment or
is,
something.
exactly. So, let's take about, it sounds great, now we're ready to think about our individual student needs and possibly really thinking about that small group and pulling those students to help support them in a small group. So let's take about, what time is it, Miss Tina? I'm sorry,
We've still got, it's 10:24.
we still got about 20 minutes, right?
Right.
So let's take about 5 or 6 minutes and fill out at least one small group and what you would work on and who would be in that group.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, we're gonna go ahead, ladies, sorry, we're gonna go ahead and so we'll have enough time to look at how to plan. So if you will look at this next sheet that I gave you, it was the introduction to Unit 2, so I want you to find that for me. And I want you to go ahead and highlight every time you see where there would be a small group that particular week. Just go through and highlight. And maybe I might even also look at where there might be partner reading, and that's my opportunity to really work on that culture and management or the environment part of my classroom. Think about the minutes that is given to you for the small groups during your lesson. Now, why a small group routine? So we're going to talk just a minute about that. And I want you to find this sheet that I have given you next that kind of explains about the small group and why we might need to have some kind of specific routine to help us with this during Tier 1. So if you look at the top, I think this is lesson 3 in Unit 2. Have you all done this lesson yet? You were not there yet, right? So that's good. We're getting a little preview of what Unit 2 is going to look like. How many times we see a small group in this unit, where we see partner reading. Where is it that we can work in places to practice and pull those students for small group? What I did is I looked at the first opportunity, I think, which is, well, I did not do day 1, but I did go to day 3, small group, reread Grand's trips, or the pet. And I want you to look at what it says for group 1. All right, Rachel, read what it tells me group 1 is expected to do.
Meet with students needing additional support, reread either Grand's trips or the pet. You may use the anecdotal reading record provided in the teacher resources section to record notes regarding the student's progress.
Okay, and we know we have group 2 because a couple of weeks ago we worked on what group 2 looks like as far as partner reading, and we have to get our rooms to where students know exactly what's expected of them for that to be successful. So, tell me about group 1. Is it like, what is it missing to you? It's not that it's missing something, but what does it need to really, for us to really do a better job at planning for this?
I guess if you're going to put this group, you're going to bring this group in for the reading, you also need to have an idea of the issues that your group is having. So you can take that story and you can pull out, say it's the blends or whatever.
Okay.
So you can take that story and then point that out, or your tricky words, or, you know, see if you can't bring in that focus of to get a little extra time in there.
It's kind of like there's not a specific, it's kind of like, what am I going to do? Yes, I'm going to let them read, but if I'm really supposed to be meeting with them and really wanting them to grow and work on those deficits, which I can do during my foundational skills lesson, I need to have kind of a routine or a plan. So if you'll look, and I hope this will help, we talked about maybe that a small group routine this is for your Tier 1, when there are not specific plans that we could do out of text, kind of like a warm-up. We would want to do in text, that would be with our decodables, and then we would want to have some kind of comprehension or questioning. So we kind of thinking about, as far as breaking up your pacing and your time, is it a 15-minute small group? I think there may be like, this one was, that we looked at for today that you read about was 20 minutes. So do I pull 2 small groups during that time, or am I just going to work with that one small group? So let's think about a routine that I have a copy of that for you, if I can find it, and it looks like this. It says small group routine. So as you see, I have written quite a few notes on maybe some things that I might want to think about as I go through this. So on the right side, it says during this out-of-text practice, these things should be happening. So I want you to read over some of the things that possibly like a warm-up. This could also be today's objective. And today's objective was the sound A, spelled A-E, I think, in this particular lesson. So I'm going to work with my students to make sure that they can hear that sound. So I might have my little whiteboard and I might say, today, boys and girls, we're going to work on the A sound. You might have your sound spelling cards, you might just write it on the whiteboard. So I want everybody to say this sound with me. Say A, so y'all can do like for the students. We say A, all right? And we also listen to some words that had the A sound in them. So I want you to tell me where you hear the A sound when I say these words. So then you would say the words to them. So I want you to listen to the sound. Where do you hear the A sound in the word ape?
Beginning.
Say the sound with me. Ape.
So I think what I would do too, though, if they don't segment it, they'd have to tell me.
Exactly. And then in a minute, we'll get down to where they do, in this particular part, they do segment and write. So good. Y'all are much better at this than I am. Then you would go through maybe and give a model word and just make sure that they are knowing where that sound is. And like Rachel said, you could segment, put it together, let them say it. So there's really no writing to begin with, just making sure that they can hear that sound. All right, so now we would go, and this is still in the out of context. So I'm going to give each student, make sure I have enough time, each of my students a whiteboard and a marker. Will they be able to handle this? Hopefully. Okay.
I think they do that in kindergarten, so they should be able to do that, yeah.
Oh, whiteboards? We already,
Yeah.
we're already using them.
They should have done it already in kindergarten too, so.
So now we're going to think about some words that have the A sound in them, and I'm going to let you write these words with me as we take them apart and then we put them back together, and we're going to see if we can write these and then say the words and hear the sounds. So the first word that we're going to write is the word fat. Fat. Good job. All right, everyone has written the word fat. Now I want you to hear this, listen and hear this word. Fate. Sorry. Did I do the schwa?
Yes.
You gotta cut.
Okay, you can see I've not done this.
And it's hard to project too.
All right, it is. So I think that's what I was wanting to do.
Whenever we do that, we throw the schwa away.
All right, you throw the
So they
schwa
go,
away.
get out of here, schwa!
All right, so let's write the word fate. So then you would make sure that they look at the vowel letter team. I think that's what you call it, right? And that they know that E and A are a team, and you would see that they could do this. So then you might model 2 or 3 other words for them to work on and do. So that would be the out of context part. whatever they would need to work on in that particular group, but you're right off the bat, you're engaging them in a specific skill that you would want them to work on. So,
We got 4 minutes.
okay, so now, the rest of that, you all can go down through and look at. The in context practice would be like, how could I scaffold for this particular students that I have? Do they need to echo read? Do they need to choral read? Do we need to do some repeated reading? What is it that these particular students help? How could we help them to be able to read this decodable lesson? We want them to be able to read on grade level, right? So what do we need to do to get them to be able to do that as we work with them? So these are just some suggestions I have here. Comprehension check. There's some questions in your lesson, I think, that you could ask. You might have them go into the text and highlight. That could be later on. Not sure they can, of course you model and help them do that. But anyway, hopefully that will help you with a small group routine for Tier 1, right? When we're doing our Tennessee foundational lesson. All right, we're almost finished. So we're going to take 1 minute and look at the takeaway, which is how can the small group routine help in implementing a small group plan successfully. So if we took this and we said, here's our little routine we're going to do each time, how could that help us maybe with a more successful plan for small group? So on your agenda, I'm sorry, there is a takeaway, please. I'm sorry. Right. And then our bring back, as you all are doing that, will be to work on a small group routine using this particular plan. I think I gave you an extra copy. And we'll share that next week. That will be our bring back. So we'll go ahead and work on the takeaway, and then when you finish that, you're ready, set, go.
Can I ask a quick
Yes, you
question?
can.
Okay. So when I'm pulling my small groups, I have a low, medium, high. Okay. And I've got my whichever group I'm working with, and I've got my other group working. My high kids, I've been having them pair up and go back to the best book and read the story, and then they have the sheet that goes along with it. And they're finishing that pretty quickly. And so my question is about those right over there. I know those are decodables too. Would that be something when we get those that we could give to our high group and let them work on so that we have something else?
Right. So I am not sure. I know that one grade will be specifically like working on this to see what we can do with those. I think that might be a good idea. But there are some specifics that we can do with those, kind of like small group activities, whole group activities. So,
because I have some kids that they're ready for something.
Miss Tammy, I don't see her, but
And have you checked with some of the others, what are they doing? Are they doing the same thing you're doing with their high group too? Working the book and doing the sheet or whatever, so are they also finishing early? And do they have anything else planned?
I mean, we can have that talk. We're just now really getting our groups going, after the test.
Well, maybe we all can think about that and what else they can do. We'll check into that.
Yes.
Geos too.
about the geos.
That would be great because it goes
Yeah.
along with our story.
Right.
It would be what we're doing,
Yes.
in those higher groups. School, then,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Would you repeat your question? I'm sorry, I've got a bad connection sometimes.
Yes.
Where I'm recovering from sickness. If you'll just repeat your question, and then I'll try to process that, and we'll try to come up with an answer for you.
Okay. What my question was, I've got a group that's pretty high. And so they're pairing off and they're doing the reading in the foundations. They're reading out of the little best book. And I'm even having them go back and read, reread stories. And then they're doing the worksheet that comes with it. My question was this, they're ready for something else. And the geodes over here, I'm just wondering if that isn't something that could be used since they're decodable, but I know they were like, I'm not sure on the percentage if it's 80 or I think it was 80%. If that's something that could be, we could get those and use those with our high groups. Something to expand for those guys, in actual reading. Did that make sense?
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is that you're looking for something for additional practice for your high group, and your question is regarding the geos possibly being that, correct?
Yes, some high interest.
Okay.
We've looked at them online and they are wonderful. And I just felt like it's got high interest that connects to what we're already doing. So we're keeping in the foundations and we're keeping in that program. But I've got about 5 kiddos that they're ready.